Don says in question 12, I have come to the conclusion that the meaning of the hawk that we had about a year ago when we started to move the first time had to do with the non-benign nature of, or in the metaphysical sense, of the house which I had picked for the move. If it isn't a problem with the law of Confucian, I think that it would be philosophically interesting to know if I am correct with respect to that. So here Don is exhibiting, that worry, that sort of, just had a bone to pick with this apparition of the metaphysical, the hawk that appeared in, what was the metaphysical sense? And that it was not benign, right? The non-benign nature. Ra says, what bird comes to affirm for Ra? What bird would be chosen to warn? We ask the questioner to ponder these queries. Again, this is just my own worldview, the way I see things. For me, it is not possible for some reason. Let me first talk about this in terms of what Don's question is, and then I'll give you some of my own personal experience. Again, Don is curious to see, maybe in his mind he's asking, am I right or was I right in denying, moving to that place? Am I okay? Did I get it right by thinking that the hawk was a sign that we shouldn't move into that house? And Ra is saying, well, what bird will come for Ra, and what bird would be chosen to warn? Ponder these queries. They don't say yes or no, and they actually maybe puzzle Don further when they say, what kind of bird would we use to give you an affirmation or validation? What kind of bird would be used for warning? I have an inability to see signs as something that is not benign. I think at the beginning of my journey in this metaphysical world, and how reality is talking to you, and the universe and manifestation and the mind being projected and so on, I had that question. I said, because for those of you who don't know, what precipitated my investigation into the nature of reality was a series of synchronicities. It wasn't a psychedelic trip. It wasn't a loss of a job, even though I had both things. Not quite the psychedelic trip. I had nothing. I had just an experience of laying down and waiting for something to happen, and nothing happened. So it wasn't for any of those flashy experiences that people talk about in their own experiences. I didn't have a flashy experience. To me, it was just a series of unquestionable synchronicities permeating through my reality during the first couple of weeks that broke down my skepticism and allowed me to say, okay, I am now fully interested in what this has to offer to me. What's happening in the world? What's happening in the universe? What's happening to me particularly? And so coming from that direction, I questioned, because all I saw was synchronicities that continue to inspire me and push me in that direction of continue doing what they're doing. And they continue to do to this day. It's just that you get so used to it. Just like when you walk into a place and you get a strong aroma, right? And you say, oh wow, it smells amazing, That initial impact, that's what I had with the synchronicities. But as time passes, the aroma doesn't go away. You just get used to it and you get engaged in some other activity. But when you pay attention to it, it's right there. And it continues to be present. So synchronicities are just a common thing that happens once you get into this path. My point is that at some stage I would say the first couple of months, I started to have this question and say, could there be synchronicities that tell me about, that warn me against doing something? Could that happen? Or, this is not good, don't do this. And pointing out at the some tragedy or something that may befall. And I found out very early, I'm grateful for that no, there's no such thing as a synchronicity that will push you to do something that is detrimental to you. All synchronicities, and I count this hawk as being a synchronicity. Why? Because it was out of the ordinary. Anything like that, any message that we deem, for somebody else, that would not have been a synchronicity. That would have been like, oh, we saw a hawk, that's nice. I like this place, or I don't like this place. I don't like big birds in my house. Whatever it is. But for people who are paying attention, we can use anything as a sign, right? And what is the sign if not inspiration? Inspiration to do what you want. Inspiration to follow whatever your heart is pushing you to do. That's what a synchronicity is. It's always positive. It's always pushing you or attracting you, seducing you into that direction. But it is true, however, that when you get pushed in the right direction and you have a doubt and you think of, I'm not sure if I should go this way, and your heart is pumping this way, right? You may get synchronicities, which I have gotten, where, it's almost like reality, like in a movie, I don't know if you've watched movies. I'm thinking of Bruce Almighty, maybe, a movie like that where the person keeps looking, Jim Carrey keeps seeing synchronicities and signs that says, do this, do that, or here's God and whatnot, something like that. That is, it's pushing you in that direction. So that's what the closest thing I see of something telling you, don't do that because this is so much better. It's highlighting the better option with inspiration. That's how I see it. But again, this is just my subjective experience. It doesn't have to conform with everybody's. But I find that this worldview is so much better than to think that I have to be paying attention to the world because there are warning signs of what I shouldn't do because it will go wrong for me. No, reality is always pointing to things that are going more in line with what you do. You do a misstep in your path, not a problem. You can continue and you will find the right direction. Making mistakes, apparent mistakes as we call them, it's not an issue. If you didn't pay attention, guess what? Nothing tragic happens, ever. So that's my sort of reassurance to you guys who are listening. Don't ever pay attention to a sign that gives you a warning, because guess what? What is within that warning? That fear of not wanting to do something because of fear, because something may befall to me. Don't you smell Orion aroma now here? Of course it is, because that is their symbol, fear. Acting out of fear or choosing out of fear. It makes no sense. Not to me, not to this philosophy, and definitely doesn't make sense with reality. It doesn't play out. Only you can create fear in your mind. Reality can only create inspiration for you. And if you pay attention to reality, you will continue to see synchronicities pushing you in the direction which your heart wants you to go. That's it. I'm done with this.